Hi, I am KTM on Two Wheels, and this is going to be an in-depth review of my NC700x ABS. It's going to be a bit odd because I'm in a public place, so everyone's looking at me because I'm talking to myself. So let's start front to back. Okay, first thing we touch front to back, the tires. This is a 17-inch rim, 120mm wide, average normal road tire. Just your ordinary road going rim, so getting off-road tires for this is going to be really hard. Next up is going to be the front fender. I'm talking about the front fender because it has an interesting feature, which is it's very short. The end result is that water gets sprayed up and straight into the radiator, which, as you can see, has no protection, so rocks will hit this. I'm going to have to get some sort of protection so I don't break my radiator. Next up, I'm talking fast because I have a lot of ground to cover and I don't want this to turn into a 30-minute video. So, front brakes, only one disc, as you can see. One disc, single disc, big wavy disc. Looks funny. This thing inside here is the ABS. You can see if this particular bike has ABS if you see this disc, and if you see two cables and three pistons here. The non-ABS version only has one cable and one piston here. So the brakes are just good. They're not awesome from my very limited experience, but they're more than good enough. Afterwards, normal suspension, completely normal suspension, not the inverted crazy whatever thingamagigs some bikes have, just your regular front suspension. And then you have this duckbill here. This is just for looks. And then you have the front headlamp, which is a H4 single bulb, so it does high beams and low beams. I have the Honda taller windscreen here. The usual one only goes up to here. This is the extra large one, which comes with these bars. I prefer the Honda one instead of a Givi one because these two holes you can see here are the original holes for the normal windscreen. When Honda fits the larger one, they get this big silvery plate so that the holes are more separate, and I think this spreads the load better. So I opted for the Honda one. I think this will last better. Completely normal indicators. And now onto the controls and stuff. Hang on. The controls are just completely standard for a big bike. You have your ignition cutoff switch, your starter, your your brake fluid reservoir, lights. The only thing that's not standard is you can see the horn is here and the indicators are below, which usually it's upside down, but I really like it because this way you can indicate very easily, and honking is also easy. The only thing I don't like is the push to pass. Instead of being a trigger on the rear, is this push to pass, high beams, low beams, push to pass, and hazards. You can adjust your clutch, you can adjust your brake the same way somewhere. I'm not really sure where, but I think you can adjust your brake. I hope so. I really like to do that. I'm not really sure where or if. Okay, onwards. This is your dash. I'm going to go around, show you the dash. The dash. Here it is. See, I'm going to show this again. Check this out. This is the rev indicator. See, it goes full to flat. Got a clock. Your absolutely normal total trip 1 and trip B indicators, which you can reset obviously, fuel, digital speed, the lights, and the rev counter, which is just this little bar here, which is not very visible, unfortunately. It's backlit in white. It's really nice to see in the dark. So this is your average dash. Remember, this is supposed to be a cheap bike, so everything here is just average and good enough. That's the whole point behind this bike. Let me just loosen this. Yeah, okay. So, mirrors. I really like these mirrors. They're well placed. They're very out. You can see they're even more on the outside than the bar ends, and great visibility, and they actually look good. So I enjoy these mirrors. This is my phone stand, and then onto the part everyone likes about this bike. I'm going to first turn left, that's the fuel, and right, that's this thingy here. This hole here is more than enough for a helmet. My helmet, which is pretty big, fits in here. My kid's helmet fits in here with no problems, and in fact, not only can my helmet fit in here, my extra visor fits. I put the helmet on, then I put the visor on top of it, and then just pluk, close it. It also has a little gap, so you can put a U-shaped lock in here, but if you put the U-shaped lock in here, the helmet doesn't fit. These are the tools, and behind this compartment, by removing these two screws, this one and this one, there's the battery. So this is the reason why I bought this one, because this way I have some very useful storage space, even though I've got this big ass box here. The fuel tank is here. I'll talk about this in a moment. That's the fuel tank. The fuel tank is under the seat and goes, it's like normal shaped somewhat, but it's like this here. It's this part here, the fuel tank. It's not very high capacity, but this bike does 3.5 liters to 100 kilometers, so a 10 or 13 liter fuel tank is enough. This is my fix to a problem. See what this is? This is a carpet anti-slide pad. You can buy these for like 20 cents a pop. And why is this? Because these seats are bad. This is the worst part on the bike by everyone. They are good for commuting, but when you do a larger trip, they are really hard and start hurting your bum. Plus, they are very slippery, see? You can just go wee here. Actually, I think the plastic is less slippery than the freaking seat. You get your backside here, you brake and you go, bah, slam with a family jewels right in here. So my solution was get that anti-slip pad, stick it in here, and now I don't slip anymore. I put it here, now my kid doesn't hit me whenever I brake. That's his foot pegs, which he never flips up when he exits the bike. My top case, my Honda top case also, because I got a great discount on it, or else it would be a aftermarket thingy. So back onto where I was. So fuel tank, supposed fuel tank, plastic, everything here is plastic. And onto the engine, which is the only innovative and odd part about this bike. 2-cylinder, parallel 700cc. That's why the NC700, which is a bad name, and I'll explain why. This engine is half the engine of a Honda Civic, and it's canted way forward. I'm completely straight, and see how much canted forward it is. It's almost lying on its side. That's so it gets a lower center of gravity and more space for the helmet, because the helmet takes up almost all of this space. The frame is your regular frame. Here's the rest of the engine, transmission, clutch and whatnot, the exhaust. Everything else is completely standard. The only thing that's not standard is this lying on its side engine, the fuel tank on the rear, and so this big space, this is just empty space. That's why the scooter version of this is just has this. And it looks like a scooter because this whole thing is just plastic and it's just a hole to put your helmet on. There's the rear brake reservoir, the rear brakes. Rear brakes is also a disc brake, and it's much smaller than the front one, as is usual. Now, the funny thing is, if you look at this, look at these indentations. Do they look familiar? That's because that rear disc is the inside of this one, see? These are the front indentations, that's why it's wavy. They stamp one piece, and then they just split it along this line, and they get both discs for the price of one, literally. This cost-saving measure is effective, simple, and it's going to be used on the new CB500 family. Right before the brakes, you have the rear mudguard, which, as you can see, there isn't one. The end result is, see my shock all filled with mud and crap? Yeah, that's what happens when you don't have a rear mudguard. So that's another thing you might want to buy. The radiator protection and the mudguard. I enjoy this. These are very flippy. Okay, so what else is new? Oh, these hand grips, they're specific to the Honda top case. They're much bigger than the standard ones. which is another thing I like on the Honda top case. My son has a bigger place to grab, and plus this is much more stable than the normal top case. See, it doesn't move anywhere. Top case stays completely still. It's very, very stable. It's got a chain what? I don't know. Okay, it's a chain driven bike, as is normal, just your regular cheap bike with some extras. Why is this name bad? By putting the CCs on the name, the first thing bikers said was only 50 horsepower on a 700cc, that's junk. So that gave it a relatively bad image, because this is not a 700cc bike, this is a 50 horsepower bike. That's the whole point. It's not having power, it's about not using up a lot of fuel. So yeah, I think that's it. Not really sure what else to talk about. Got the dash, I got the space, fuel, exhaust, I think, yeah, gears, normal gears. The frame is just about regular, even though it's not like this. The frame is like this. It's a bit bent or something. So yeah, I think that's it. That's just about it. It's really easy to drive, so I'll just start it up and show you me exiting this place. Let's go. My key has a certain tendency of not wanting to turn. I'm going to try to capture the sound of it starting, which is really nice. Wanna see? Check it out. That was embarrassing. Okay. She's warmed up, so there's not much of a problem to do this. I really love the sound. I really doubt the microphone captures this, but this is a very low frequency, bassy, throbbing sound. And being a parallel two-cylinder, they've made some thingy-gigs thingies to the engine, so it pulses a bit, so it's not completely dead. So you can feel it vibrating, but it's not quite just vibrating, it's more of a thump 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 thing. Oh, and by the way, I'm riding this, but I'm really not experienced. I've got my riding license for less than a month, and that's one of the good things about this one. It's really easy to drive because it drives almost like a 125cc bike. And why is that? Because they went to great lengths to keep the center of gravity low, so it's easy to handle. And it really is easy to handle. It really is really easy to handle. It's low revving, as you can see. It only goes to 6.5, which is annoying, but the name of the game is fuel consumption. So the engine's like driving a diesel car. But yeah, it's got a really low center of gravity, which was the whole point. So even though it's 400 pounds, that's 215 kilos or 218, depends on the version. It's a really easy bike to ride because of its very low center of gravity. It's a bit on the high side for me, but even when stopping, if I put my feet flat on the ground, I can still cant it a bit and not lose control. Look, that's me with the foot flat on the ground. I can keep it flat, but I can also do it like this, and I'm still in control. She's still not falling over, even though that's just about the limit. That lower center of gravity really does do wonders. The end result is that you got a 700cc bike, no, scratch that, a 50 horsepower bike, or 35 kilowatt for that new European A2 riding license, which is going to be a huge market for this bike. It's got the 35 kilowatts or 48 horsepower that it needs for that. And with that 48 horsepower you get a almost 125cc handling or a 250cc handling, in that it's really easy to chuck around like this. See, wee. It's really easy to move. You got the ride quality of a big bike. and you don't have to pay 10,000 euros for it. You only pay like 6k or 6.5k. So yeah, that's it. That's why it's being so popular, because this is basically the perfect commuter bike. It's got enough power, not too much, but enough power for your regular I don't care about speed commuter. It's got the lowered fuel consumption that a commuter needs at this point. Go on, yeah, overtake me to go nowhere. I'll just redo it. Fucking dumbass. It's got the very low fuel consumption you wouldn't expect from a 700. Actually, something you wouldn't expect from a 250. Never mind the 700. This fuel consumption 3.5 is equivalent to a few 125cc bikes. Like for example, the KTM Duke 125 does 3.5 liters to 100 kilometers. Thank you. The Daylem Roadwind, which is an awesome looking 125, does the same. The 3.5 is a bit of an exaggeration, because to do 3.5 you have to go slowly. The more normal one would be 3.6 to 4 liters, but that's still really low. If you really want to save fuel, you can do 3.5, which is what I am aiming to do. And it goes plenty fast enough, especially for an inexperienced rider like me. If you're coming in from a CBR 900, XX, Triple Z, 300 kph crotch rockets, you're gonna be disappointed with the speed. One last detail which I enjoy is that maintenance intervals are 12,000 kilometers. That's about 7,000 miles, I think, or something. So that's really long for a bike, which is good because it keeps maintenance low. I'll just duck in behind the windscreen for less noise. So that's one of the advantages. The other thing that made me climb up from the 125cc range is that now I no longer am limited to the rightmost lane. I can go on to the center lane and ride like a normal motorcycle. 120 and no problems, get up to 140 and still no problems, or more. So yeah, let me just see what this guy wants to do. Do you want to get away so I can pass, please? Thank you. See? So that's it. Cage, you're out.